week 4 review. I appreciate you being so accommodating and letting me stay home with my 2 sick kids. I wanted to go back and supplement some of today's lecture that I forgot to record so that you can review it or you can watch it for the first time, as some of you were absent or late due to what I will take is due to my last minute rearranging of class. So we're at week 4. Your reading was the prologue and chapter 1 of Danica Selaskovic, Interpreting for International Conferences. If you haven't read it yet, I definitely suggest reading this and catching up with your readings, because this book, as I said several times, is literally handing you the keys to interpreting. Um, so definitely get to it. I shared the link to our check in. We do have notes, but don't worry about that. Let's review our idiom. I don't know why I don't just show it to you. Okay, here it is. Okay, and you have the link, and in English gloss for that could be um, oops, my bad, crap, oh, yikes, right? Like, eek, oh, oh, something like that, right? Okay. Chapter 1, the prologue, talked about people calling an interpreting studio program and wondering, taking a tour of it and being surprised to realize that learning about interpreting had nothing to do about learning language. And they also challenged people's intentions on why they wanted to be interpreters. And I remember the first time I read that, I was a little put off by it. But it comes at good heatings. It should provoke you and to think about why you want to be an interpreter. And again, beyond the idea of helping, like what exactly is helping? Who are you helping? So you have a journal that's due, and in your journal, you're going to talk about the interpreting process, how you define it, and then I would also like you to add your why for interpreting. Chapter 1 gave us some key terms that we use in this field currently, the difference between translation versus interpreting or interpretation, which people still outside of this field, interchange all the time, and that's okay. They talked about consecutive interpreting versus simultaneous interpreting. Spoken language uses simultaneous interpreting a little bit different than we do, but nonetheless, the cognitive tasks are still the same. The big difference is that a lot of simultaneous interpreting in spoken languages are prepared. They are given the speeches beforehand. And in sign language interpreting, we don't have that same luxury. Then there's consecutive and simultaneous. Consecutive is you go, I interpret, you go, I interpret, you go, I interpret. And simultaneous is as you're talking, I'm talking, right? Which is mostly what we do. Then lag time is mentioned. We don't call it lag time anymore. We call it process time because of the negative connotations associated with lagging. It's, deaf people are lagging behind. They are behind their hearing peers. So we don't want to have like a deficit mind frame. And also, we're not just like lagging behind, like we're processing. We're intentionally staying a sentence behind because we need to know what a person is saying. If we don't understand it, we don't interpret it. That's the number one rule of interpreting. You don't interpret what you don't understand. And there's no possible way you can understand it if you don't hear it or see it. So a person has to say a sentence before you can interpret it. So you're processing. Next, we did an exercise, which is called Draw the Bug. And if you missed class today or you missed this part of the class, I will go ahead and read it. So get out a piece of paper and follow along. I'm going to describe a drawing to you that I have made of a bug. And I want you to draw the bug as I describe it. Okay. You may not ask any questions during this process, and I will not repeat myself. So, are you ready? We'll share our bugs at the end. The bug is round. The bug has 8 legs, grouped in pairs, with 4 legs on the left and 4 legs on the right. In the pairs, one leg is longer than the other. The bug has 2 eyes on top of the body. The bug has 2 squiggly antennas. The bug has 2 pea-pod-shaped wings. The bug has a spot next to each wing. The bug has a triangular stinger at the bottom of the body. The bug has 2 feelers on each foot, one longer than the other, both coming from the same side of the leg. The bug has a round mouth placed between the 2 eyes. The bug has laid 5 square eggs to the left of the stinger. Okay, when you're ready, hold up your bug. Great, thank you. You see the PowerPoint? You see the bug there? So why do you think all the bugs look different? We all have different perspectives, yeah, on the words and how it was drawn. What else were you going to say, Kira?
I just think because it's not generic, it's very specific, but I'm like, but there's no way to tell exactly where each individual thing is or like how exactly to draw everything. Like there's no way for me to know that you were going to draw it at a right angle or something unless you said that specifically, like the legs. So I think it's just what our brain made up in our head, the image that first came to our mind.
That's how you interpreted it?
Yeah, that thing.
Yeah. Great. Anybody gonna say anything else?
I just knew mine was gonna be bad, so I just tried to figure out how it looks. I mean, it looked better than my mind, and it came out on drawing something different. So,
Well, what's in your mind happened when I first said you were gonna draw a bug? What happened in your mind?
well, I actually imagined an actual bug, and then my drawing, no, it just didn't meet the requirement. Like I was like, you know what, it's fine.
Great. Do you think that there would have been any difference in your outcome if you were able to answer any questions or ask any questions? Answer. Mhm.
I misheard you about the wings and I didn't
Mhm.
hear what shape you said that they were. And so I was like, we're just gonna draw wings that I know look like wings because I don't know exactly what they are, but I know they have them. But
Great.
yeah.
For me, it would be knowing the legs are at an angle because I just drew lines for the legs and I didn't know they would be at a, I guess, right angle.
And then I also thought, is this bug big or small? And then once I started drawing it small, I was like, this is a lot of things to try to fit into this bug. Probably should be bigger, but yeah, those are the only questions that came to my mind while you were talking about it.
Yeah, and I imagined myself drawing a fly for some reason. So I was like, oh, a fly is small. And then when you said like the stinger and all this other stuff, I said, oh, it's really big. So yeah, it was the size was the problem for me.
Hmm. Well, sure. Predicting. You were predicting. You saw a fly in your head, and then you were predicting that what was going to be said was going to match that. Yeah. All of that is like listening skills, right? And Selzkovich talks a lot about that in her reading on how interpreters need to listen. So, based off that last exercise, I'm going to show you two slides. The slides has 14 um, lines on it, sentences, and this one has about 14 more. So, well, that math doesn't math, but so there's 30 altogether. So from these 30, pick 5 altogether. I'll keep this slide open for a few minutes and then I'll move over to the next slide. So you want to narrow it down to 5 and pick out what you feel matches your listening style. Do you tune out people when they say something that you don't agree with or you don't want to hear or doesn't maybe match up with what you predicted? Uh, Concentrating on what is being said, even if you're not really interested. You assume that you know what the talker is going to say, and so stop listening. You repeat in your own words what the talker has just said. Listen to the other person's point of view, even if it differs from yours. Learn something from each person you meet, even if it's ever so slight. Find out what words mean when they are used in ways not familiar to you. Form a rebuttal in your head while the speaker is talking. Give the appearance of listening when you aren't. Daydream while the speaker is talking. Listening to the whole message when the talker is saying verbally and non-verbally. Recognize that words don't mean exactly the same thing to different people. Listen to only what you want to hear, blotting out the talker's whole message. Look at the person who's talking. So I'll give you a few minutes to write some of these down and then I'll switch a slide.
I had a question. Just wanted to make sure it's 5 all out of all 30, or is it?
Yeah, 5 altogether out of the 30.
Thank you.
Okay, I see a lot of eyes up, so I'll go to the next slide. Some more listening strategies. You concentrate on the talker's meaning rather than how she or he looks. Know which words and phrases you respond to emotionally. Think about what you want to accomplish with your communication. Plan the best time to say what you want to say. Think about how the other person might react to what you say. Hold on, my Zoom is in the way. Consider the best way to make your communication, whether that be written, spoken, phone, bulletin board, memo, etc., work. Think about what kind of person you are talking to, if they're worried, hostile, disinterested, rushed, shy, stubborn, impatient, etc. Interrupt the talker while he or she is still talking. Think, I assume he or she would know that. Practice regularly to increase your listening efficiency. Take notes when necessary to help you remember. Hear noises without being distracted by them. Listen to the talker without judging or criticizing. Restate instructions and messages to be sure that you understood correctly. Phrase what you believe the talker is feeling. Allow the talker to vent negative feelings towards you without becoming defensive. Okay, so they're all here in this week's shared notes. I'm going to put it in the chat. And I'm going to break you up into teams of 2. And I would like for you to, for say, Becca and I were in a group. I will say, I picked number 1, read number 1, and why I picked it, because I always do this or whatever, try to think a little bit beyond and like why. And then Becca will say, thank you. I picked number 4, whatever reason. I will say, thank you. I picked number 6. Okay. All right.
breakout rooms.
Try to do that same exercise for yourself. It's really great with a group of people because one of the things you learn is that we all interpret things differently, and we're also receiving information so much, like so drastically different from each other. And it's really important. It's important to know as an interpreter that people perceive and take in things in different ways. But also just as a human to know that, like, anytime you listen to something, especially to interpret it as interpreters, it's always going to be different, right? It's always going to be different depending on the day, depending on how much contact knowledge you have, depending on the speakers. All of those impacts you. And so you want to set yourself up where you don't have these ideals and these expectations that you think that you need to meet and that you think everybody else needs to meet. That we just start off with clean slates, no expectations, and give ourselves those liberties and that grace to be creative, to make mistakes, to maybe realize we're not paying attention or we're stuck somewhere else in our process. So hopefully that's one takeaway, and just kind of trying to understand yourself and how you listen and what things you have in your power to be a better listener. We listened to the story from Marquesa. I'll play it now for you in case you weren't in class.
Hi, I'm Marquesa. I'm going to share with you one of the most special or funny events in my life. It's when I was 6 years old. I was a very active child, probably from birth through all my life. But anyway, at 6, I was a very active and busy kind of child. I used to like to cook a lot and play outside a lot. So that meant that I often took my mom's pots and pans outside to do my cooking. On one special day that I'll never forget, I had taken my mom's pots outside and had begun my daily cooking. And I had 3 pots, one large one, one medium-sized one, and one very small one. The large one was for my roast, which was made out of a large rock. And the medium-sized one was for my vegetables, my greens, which was a mixture of grass and weeds. And the small one was for my potatoes, which were very small pebbles. I didn't have any difficulty finding my grass and my weeds for my green vegetable, nor did I have any difficulty finding my small pebbles for my potatoes. So I quickly found both of those and got my dinner started. Well, it was a little bit more difficult to find my roast, which was my larger rock. There happened to be a rock that was the perfect size under the steps. So I proceeded to go to the steps and stick my head under and my arm under to get this rock, which was my roast for the day. I couldn't get my head out once I got it stuck. I had my roast, but I didn't have my head. So I moved back and forth and I tried to get my head out and I couldn't. I screamed and I yelled, and finally my mom came outside. She also kind of worked and helped me try to get my head from under the steps. She couldn't get me from under the steps either. So then my mom called a neighbor, because by this time my mom was a little bit panicked. So she called a neighbor, and between the two of them, they got me from under the steps. And at that point, my mother fussed at me because I think she was angry for 2 reasons. First, she was angry because this was just another thing that I had done in my life to try her patience. So she was a little bit annoyed because I'd gotten my head stuck under the steps and I couldn't get out. She couldn't get me out. She had to get a neighbor to help her get me out. And then she was annoyed because I had her good pots and pans outside with rocks in them. And I think what I forgot to share was I had also made my gravy, which was a combination of dirt and water, meaning mud. So I had this mud and these rocks, which were my potatoes, and all this gooky stuff in my mother's good pots and pans. So she was furious. And so that ended up being another one of those times when I was on punishment and sent to my room, where I always went to the window and yelled out, "Hi, I'm on punishment. Guess what I did this time?"
And now, if you would, take out another piece of paper and try to draw, try to use images. If you use any English, maybe just like one word or two, and draw what you can retell from that, or what you can recall from that story, what maybe you visualize or what you might feel. So take a few moments now and go ahead and make that drawing. Okay, pause it if you need some more time. And what I would like you to do is look at your drawing, and if, say, you have right, something like this, okay? I just want you to look at your drawing and just take inventory of what's there. This is a stairwell. This is, the stairs. Her head stuck, a head in between it. I added more to that, so I wanted to fix that, and that's what you want to do. We don't, right? It's just a head, a pot, right? So just call out what things are and try to see what you are, what's sticking out for you, and maybe how that's sticking out for you. Okay. I'd like to go around, and maybe if you want to just share your drawing and point out what things are. You don't have to explain. For example, if this is my drawing, I would say this is a banister, this is a head, this is a pot. Okay. Giles, would you like to go first?
Okay, I definitely did have noise in the background, and I did not hear when you said it was a drawing. I thought you
Oh,
just
that's okay.
didn't tell it in your own words.
Okay.
So I misunderstood as well.
Okay. You both retold the story?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead. What did you have for your story? Hi, Joyce. Sorry that you went all the way to campus.
I just had there was a woman, and she was an active child, like around 6, and she got pots and pans from the kitchen and went outside to cook a roast. She used a big rock, excuse me, as a roast, and she used grass as vegetables. Uh, she, I missed one part. Somehow she got her head stuck in the ground. Um, and she tried to get her head out of the ground. Uh, she screamed for her mom. Her mom came outside, but she was panicking. So her mom called the neighbor to help to get her hair out of the ground. And once she did that, she was grounded, and and, and she told and she wanted to tell her friend what she did, something like that.
Great. Kiara's, was yours different in any spots?
Yeah, I was like, mine's a little more detailed, it's a little long, but like, do you want me to read it?
I'd love that.
So I said she was a very active child. I was like, she loved the outdoors and cooking, which meant she liked to cook outside. She brought out 3 pots, one large for stew, a medium for her veggies, and a small one. She had no problem finding grass and pebbles for her veggies, but she was still looking for a large rock. She finally found one under the stairs, but it was hard to reach, so she put her whole arm under and couldn't reach it. So then she stuck her head under and was able to grab the rock, but now her head was stuck under the stairs. She started to scream and yell, and her mother came outside to try to get her out, but she couldn't do it. And then the mother asked the neighbor for help, and they finally worked together to get the girl unstuck. Her mom was frustrated because her daughter tried her patience, and she had her mom's good pots and pans outside with rocks in it. The girl also made gravy out of dirt and water in the pots as well, and she got sent up to her room and from her window yelled, "Hey, I'm on punishment. Guess what I did this time?"
Thank you. Destiny, what do you have for us? A drawing or words?
Forgot I was mute. I have a drawing. Can y'all see it well? It's a little
Yeah.
blurry. Okay, this is the big pot for the roast. I put a question mark because the rock wasn't there. This is the medium pot for the greens with grass and weeds. This is the small pot for the small rocks and potatoes. Uh, this is her stuck in the stairs, and this is her mom, and she's yelling help, and this is the neighbor. I drew a little house over there. Um, this is her mom yelling at her afterwards about the pots and pans. Oh, that's her gravy, I forgot. And then this is her in her window afterwards,
Thank
after
you,
she got on punishment.
Becca. Nope. Thank you. No disclaimers needed. Okay, so here's an important question I have for you. As you're retelling, what is happening in your mind? I'm gonna ask Kiara first because you got to really retell it. Thank you for that. What is happening in your mind when you're retelling it?
I'm just trying to remember exactly what I heard, and I'm like saying it again.
How?
I don't know. I think like I'm just rehearing it in my brain. I'm like replaying the video and I'm rewatching it and rehearing it, and then I'm just writing
Are you
down
s- are you seeing it or are you hearing it?
both.
Okay. So do you see Marquesa? Like, do you remember what color shirt she had on, or do you just
Greenish ground, like beige kind of color. Yeah, and it was like a blue backdrop. She's a black girl. Can't remember what color her hair was, but yeah, no, it's a little bit of both. If I watch the video, it's easier for me to like re-see everything.
Thank
Yeah.
you. What about you, Jael?
Try I know, no, I know at the end it was a little bit of it was my mom and she was loud and I was like, we can't do this. But I just tried to remember the story, try to imagine how she looked. What did she wear when she, got the pots and pans? How did her house look? I don't know, how did her mom look? Or the neighbor, or how the neighbor house look, and yeah, I was just trying to paint a picture in my head about the play by play.
So unlike the video that Kiara was replaying, you were building a narrative of your head with Marquesa as a child.
Yes,
And were you the child or were you viewing the child?
I was viewing the child.
Did you have a point of view? Were you like looking from above or looking from the neighbor's house or
I I was actually though I could say that I think it was a little bit of both. I think I was the child and I was trying to like, oh, look at me getting the pots and pans. It was like me for a second, and then it's so weird. It's like I was a child first, and after I saw the child.
Mhm.
It was like at first it was like, oh, me getting the pots and pan, and I'm just seeing the girl outside trying to cook a roast with rocks and vegetables with grass. Yeah, it's weird. I was just
No,
trying
it's
to
not weird.
build this scene in my mind.
Mhm. And that happened while you were listening or after while you were trying to recall it?
Wow.
Wow. Was there any difference between when you were listening to when you were recalling in your mind?
Uh, I when the video was playing, I really didn't get a really good look of the background and what she looked in the video. At all. I was just trying to just, oh, I like I'm that person, or I'm watching this little girl do trying to make a roast outside.
Mhm. Mhm. Great. Thank you. Destiny, same question for you.
While she was telling the story and when I was drawing it out, I thought of it in the same manner of I thought of it as like I guess a children's special. I did a whole cartoon in my head. Um, and that's how I was visualizing it while she was telling the story. I wasn't the kid, and the perspective would change because I wouldn't be in a stagnant place in the backyard. But I wasn't in the neighbor's yard. I know that.
Did you know the yard?
Yeah, I just did a plain grass, and I threw up a fence. And
Why did you put up a fence? Was it a yard that you had, a yard that you've been to?
no, I just needed a barrier. I guess I didn't want to decorate the rest of the neighborhood or see another house. So I put up
Uh-huh.
a barrier of a fence so I
Okay.
could only focus on the backyard and her and the pots and pans and all of that stuff.
Thank you. What about you, Becca? Thank you. Joyce, to really quickly catch you up, we're talking about our listening skills from chapter 1 of Say You Want to Be an Interpreter, where Seliskovich addresses how interpreters have to listen differently, more attentively, more deeper, but also in a very freeing way because we don't have to listen to participate, which gets rid of lots of anxieties for us and gives us real opportunity to see events for what they are. Um, and she has strategies for effective listening for interpreters, which I've condensed into the ABCs of interpreting. Does anybody remember what A is?
Is it actively listen without distractions, or did I make that up?
It's good. Yeah, avoid distractions. Great. What about B? B for beyond the words. We want to listen to beyond the words. And what was C? Connections. We want to make connections, right? To our emotions, to our experiences. We call them schemas, your filing cabinet, whatever, however that hits for you. So that's really what we're doing when we're listening. We're avoiding all distractions. We're getting to the meaning, right? We're listening beyond the words. If a person says something like fine, it's not fine. What do they mean by fine, right? So we're listening beyond the word and we're finding our own connections. We're putting ourselves in our own backyards or like Destiny, I'm sure if we started talking a little bit more about where did the pots come from? Where did the banister look like? Right? You have some sort of schema from where all these things came from. So you're starting to build images or connections to it. Go ahead, Kiara, you had something you want to say?
Yeah, I also, while y'all were talking about it, I was like, I definitely did like realize that I was seeing like the play-by-play as well. It's so subconscious that I wasn't realizing like that's what my brain was doing. Because like I imagined someone taking my pots and pans out, and I was like, yeah, I'd be mad too if my child was out with blood. Like, no. And so I definitely did imagine that, but I was like a bystander, so I like saw everything happening around me. But I was like pretty close to it. I wasn't far away or anything. But yeah, just wanted to share.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, and I noticed that when I was retelling it, I at the beginning and towards the middle, I started to write I instead of she or her. I started to use my own personal pro like, oh, I got the pots and pans. I went outside, got the raw, but I was like, well, it's not my story. But I was so close to writing I instead of she or her. I was about to say my mom, but she's not my mom, so
I'm
yeah.
always the protagonist too. I'm always the protagonist, but it helps in ASL because everything is from that perspective. So, yeah, so in ASL, I would say my mom. I would surrogate into the speaker, and I would be the protagonist. So, yeah, my mind always makes me the protagonist. I don't know if it's like an ego thing or what, but it's always me. It's always happening to me. Okay.
If you want now, take a moment, pause this video, and retell the whole Marchesa story. When you're done with it, go back to that piece of paper and just write down what was happening in your mind when you were retelling that story. Did you feel things? Did you see things? Was it empty? Did you hear things? How are you pulling back this story and retelling it? So go ahead, pause the video, take a few moments, and jot that all down.
Okay. I'm going to show you a video now in sign language, and I just want to see if you can notice how you're attending to this message, um, and if it's different. Oh, take a few minutes and just jot down some of what you remember from that story, whether it be pictures, if you're going to write any words, use ASL Gloss. And if you find any committee members getting in the way, maybe draw a line and put that off on the margin. Okay. Say this is your drawing. That's why this is a guy. He's wearing a shirt that says "I love New York." He's on a horse. This is a star with the cowboy hat and some spurs, and there's cowboys in there riding a horse. This is the cow. This is udders, right? So just point out what it is that's there. You don't need to preface it with anything. And then if you had some like voices, bothering you somewhere off on the side, finger spelling, nerves, right? Anything that was maybe distracting you from being able to concentrate or to attend. Thank you. Oh, there you
Hi.
are. Hi. Do you want to show us your picture?
Okay, I didn't. It was really choppy and really fast, so I was only getting bits and pieces. I don't know if that was just my computer being weird or if it was like on super sped up, but my brain was grasping for straws and I barely understood anything. So pretty much I wrote down something about a friend. I saw some stomach spots. I saw awkward a couple times. Riding a horse, some like really crazy ride on the horse, and something about being scared. And that's really all I was able to pick up.
Okay. Yeah. So it's okay. We're not worried about receptive. We're not worried about anything actually. We're trying to see how your mind is working. How are you listening and how are you recalling? Did you draw anything that you did get from it?
No, I thought about drawing the stomach thing, but like I really didn't know how to I should have drawn someone on a horse probably. I was kind of like just stuck with like feeling like I didn't get anything.
No, it's okay. I drew a person on a horse. Doesn't mean you had to draw a person on a horse. Becca, do you mind re-showing your drawing and just working on like going through it again? Thank you. Thank you. So now that everybody's back, is there anything that you noticed about yourself that was different from ASL to English stories? Thank you. Thank you, Kiara.
Yeah, I was saying that I think it goes back to like what we were talking about hearing being involuntary versus like sight being something that you have to think about. I was like the fact that I have to think in order to see, like I have to remember to do that. And so I catch myself thinking about, okay, what am I seeing and paying attention to that and not getting, since I'm not hearing anything, not making outside noise distract me as well, or psychological noise distract me as well. And then just getting used to signs that I don't see all the time. Like, I was like, I know I've seen it before, but I can't remember what that means. So then I have the inner dialogue of, okay, what is that sign? What does that mean? And then I'm like, well, I have to keep seeing versus like I can't just like I can't hear both. Like it doesn't drown out my thoughts because I'm not hearing anything. So yeah, that was my thought process going through that whole thing.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Just for the same thing. I and like I was trying to not think about overthink it too much of what that sign was. I was like in the back of my head, I was like, oh, I've seen that sign before, but I forgot the sign. I just like it's a lot of just like Becca's processing in the mind. You really have to just put your full focus on it. And I found myself before we actually start watching the video, I was like, I know I need to do. I know I need to focus on this more than when the lady was talking. I found myself had to really focus and actually just try to still picture the scene in my mind, which I did. I saw the farm, I saw the cows, I saw the animals, I saw them moving around, having a fun time. I saw all of that, but it was the words, the signs that he used, and it made me just forget about the whole picture towards the end.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think not feeling it made you get rid of the picture? Because it seems like you still have quite a bit of a picture.
Yeah, I saw the I saw the hill, I saw the cows. I just missed. I don't know if he mentioned about his family at all. I don't remember that. I just remember my main focus was the cow
Mm-hmm.
and the horse. That's the only two animals I saw. I know if someone said talk about a sheep, I didn't see a sheep. Even if I did see a sheep, I don't know how to draw a sheep. So I don't know. My main focus was the animals and him. If there was another human being right there, I just totally missed it. So yeah.
And as we talked about in the first class, not everybody is visual, and that is okay. It's just we're just trying to get a grasp on something that is so subconscious on how we listen, on how we attend, and then how do we recall those things. Right? Like how do we give words to that if we're not ever really, it's just happening, right? So it wasn't about like how much did you get, but more about like how are you taking it in, and also kind of practicing like, all right, I got to put that committee aside, right? I didn't get that sign. Okay, I can't fall down that well. I got to keep it moving, right? I got to keep thinking on listening, on looking, whatever Kiera beautifully said. Thank you. Destiny, did you have anything you wanted to contribute or?
No, it's pretty much going to be repeating the same things. How I had to get rid of like the internal noise of focusing on what I missed, and instead had to be attentive and keep watching and make sure I'm actually still getting the message instead of just focusing on that one bit I missed, because that throws everything off.
Mhm. Thank you. Let's take a 7-minute break and come back at 11:30 for my favorite activity. And I'm optimistic that you're going to love it too. So refresh your drinks and I'll see you at 11:30.
So the point of all those exercises is really to think about listening and recalling. But how we recall really is contingent on how we listen. If we're not concentrating, if we're not fully engaged and listening, we're not going to be able to recall. So there's all sorts of studies and sciences on how people listen, different types of listening, critical listening, biased thinking, evaluative listening. There's also degrees of listening. The 6 levels of listening. First level being ignoring. Second level, pretending to listen. Then we have selective listening. Then we have active listening, empathetic listening, and then listening to somebody on a more spiritual level, just completely understanding and empathizing and understanding, right? I like and appreciate how Seleskovich in our reading talks about how an interpreter needs to listen in a completely different way, in a way that isn't anxiety provoking or fear based, because we don't have to participate. We can just be in a math class and know that we will never get called upon to answer what 62 times 76 is. And so we never have that running fear or monologue going on in our head. We're never worried about what we're going to say or how we're going to contribute or how we're being perceived or what the answer is. We take away all of those anxieties, all of those fears, and we just get to be in the room and we just have to fully listen and attend to people. And it gives us, not having to participate, really gives us the opportunity to fully concentrate on what a person is meaning when they are talking. So from that chapter, from that part of the chapter, I boiled down Seleskovich's Seleskovich's comments to the ABCs of listening for interpreters. A is avoiding any types of distractions. B, and attending. B is beyond the words, listening beyond the words, finding what she calls the essence, or what we'll say like the meaning, right? The essence, the meaning of a message. As I said in class, somebody might say, I'm fine, but they don't mean fine, F-I-N-E. What do they mean? We have to find the essence of that. So remove the words and find the meaning. And lastly, we have to connect. We have to connect emotionally, mentally, spiritually to what people are saying so that we can really understand what they mean and interpret it. Then we go into Kanebaro, the stapler exercise, which I'll pull out in case you were already in class and you did it and you'd like to try it again, or you'd like to try 2 sentences behind instead of 1. So let me clip that in. To practice the Kanebaro, the stapler exercise, or if you missed class today and wanted to do it for the first time, I have a link for a random sentence generator, so you're welcome to practice with a friend or a partner. But also we can practice here together. So I'm going to read a sentence from this random sentence generator. I've made it populate 15 sentences. I will read one, I will count to 10 in my head, and then I'll read the second one. After I read the second one, you're going to out loud say the first sentence. Then I'll read the third sentence, count to 10 in my head. While I'm counting to 10 in my head, you're going to be saying out loud the second sentence, and we'll progress through all 15. Okay? Ready? His confidence would have been admirable if it wasn't for his stupidity. I can't believe this is the 8th time I am smashing open my piggy bank on the same day. Someone I know recently combined maple syrup and butter popcorn, thinking it would taste like caramel popcorn. The dolls spun around in circles in hopes of coming alive. The fish dreamed of escaping the fishbowl and into the toilet bowl where he saw his friend go. Combines are no longer just for farms. I've never seen a more beautiful brandy glass filled with wine. They ran around the corner to find that they had traveled back in time. Everyone says they love nature until they realize how dangerous it could be. Potato wedges probably are not best for relationships. He put heat on the wound to see what would grow. The random sentence generator generated a random sentence about a random sentence. She borrowed the book from him many years ago and hasn't returned it yet. His son quipped that power bars were nothing more than adult candy bars. I only enjoy window shopping when the windows are transparent. Go ahead, say the last sentence. Thanks. Like for you to remember is from the Seleskovich reading is that when you try to remember the words, you just get all tangled up in the language, right? It doesn't help you produce a better comprehension or interpretation. And the depths of understanding are also introduced in Seleskovich, and how we can get ourselves to truly understand. And that's by visualizing, whatever that means for you. React mentally and emotionally to whatever the speaker is saying. Pull from our own memories and schemas, and identify logistic structures, right? So we're building upon what we know already. We're connecting to what the person is saying. And Seleskovich really emphasizes the fact that visualization helps you anchor ideas and concepts to meaning. It helps you unpack it, it helps you understand it, and it helps you relate to it or connect to it. Seleskovich says that you're using the mind's eye to see an object or picture events as they are being described helps to understand the sense of what somebody is saying. So again, this is really focusing on how we can connect to what somebody is saying, how focusing attentively, using our working memory, not our short-term or our long-term memory. We're using our working memory to actively listen, to avoid any types of distractions, to go to the sense of what a person is saying, so beyond the words, and finding that connection, the emotional, the memories, truly connect to the spirit of what somebody is saying. And that was it for today's class. Next week, we're reading chapter 2 of the same book. If you haven't read the prologue of chapter 1, please catch up on the readings. Save these PDFs because I promise you this is interpreting. Anything else we read is just going to be a quote of this. It's going to reference this, so read the source. And Journal 1 is due, and Journal 1 you're going to talk about how you understand the process of interpreting to be, what it means to you, and why you want to be an interpreter. What's your why? Please let me know if you have any questions. Thanks again for joining me online. Sorry if that caused you to be late or to miss out on class. Reach out to me at any time with any questions, comments, or concerns, and have a great week.